Amazing revelation. Wife exposes hidden truths after millionaire husband forgot Christmas. In the heart of December, Sara stood in the middle of the living room, lovingly draped with twinkling lights and fragrant pine. The air was filled with the sweet scent of gingerbread cookies mixed with pine needles. Yet a heaviness lingered in the air, overshadowing the joy that Christmas once brought into their home. Her heart ached as she glanced at her husband, Mark, frantically typing away on his laptop. He hadn't even noticed the missing ornaments from the tree, each one a cherished memory crafted by their children's tiny hands. Tears threatened to spill as she remembered how Christmas had once been a season of laughter, carolers filling the night with joy. But those days felt distant now, and they were slipping away, a cruel reminder that wealth couldn't buy back those fleeting moments of family connection. Holiday preparations like baking cookies and making handmade ornaments were now eclipsed by meetings in stark glass boardrooms. Sara fought back the bitterness rising within her. This wasn't just about forgotten traditions, it was about the growing chasm between her and the man she loved. She recalled the joy of their early years together, when Mark was just starting his career, a young man full of hope. They'd spent every holiday season with love and laughter. Now that love seemed overshadowed by deadlines and ambition. Sara felt the sting of unspoken words swell in her chest. She needed to confront him before Christmas slipped through their fingers completely. One chilly evening, she rummaged through boxes filled with old decorations. As she unearthed a hidden treasure of family photos, nostalgia washed over her. Images of sun-kissed summer days and evenings by the fire wrapped her in warmth, but the thrill quickly turned to pain. Each picture whispered of a joyful past, a vibrant family that was slowly being replaced by silence. A time when Mark would drop everything to decorate the house with her and the children. "Mark," she said, her voice shaky yet steady during a family dinner. The air grew thick. "We need to talk. Your work, it's taking us away from us." He looked up, blue eyes bewildered, as their children exchanged nervous glances, sensing the shift. And just like that, the words tumbled out. Her heartbreak, the longing for connection, the growing distance suffocating their home. Mark's defenses crumbled. For the first time, he listened, to the crack in her voice, the fire in her eyes. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference." Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the echoes of their argument faded, they embarked on a heartfelt discussion about values, priorities, and the essence of family. Mark felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him, realizing that his ambition was taking away not just time, but the very love his family craved. Hope flickered in the air, delicate yet persistent, as he made a promise to change. Yet a lingering doubt gnawed at Sara. Was this transformation real, or would it fade as quickly as the flicker of holiday lights? Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with festivities, families laughing and coming together, a stark contrast to the tension in their home. Deep down, Sara longed for the warmth of family love as she watched her children's faces glow with excitement. Could Mark truly open his heart again and heal the rift formed by his neglect? As the clock ticked closer to Christmas, Sara couldn't help but wonder if a new beginning was waiting just around the corner, or if their holiday would only serve as a reminder of all that was broken. The days passed, each one heavier than the last, filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. As Christmas approached, Mark made changes he had promised. He cleared his schedule, set aside the laptop, and even tried to help the children with their school projects. Yet every time he seemed engaged, Sara could still sense an undercurrent of tension. It was as if he was trying to play a role he wasn't quite comfortable with. One evening, while they baked cookies together, flour dusted in their hair and laughter punctuating the air, Sara took a moment to really study Mark's face. Despite his efforts, she could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. While they rolled out dough shaped like stars and trees, the family filled the room with cheerful energy, but a part of Sara felt like they were just putting on a show. "Are you okay, Mark?" she asked, gently nudging him with her elbow as she cut out shapes. He paused, his hands stilling for a breath. "Yeah, just trying to get it all right," he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Days turned into nights, and just as they hung the last ornament on the tree, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. A delivery man stood at the door, hands full of wrapped packages. Mark signed for them, his brow furrowing as he opened one box, revealing an extravagant watch. Sara felt her heart sink, the same watch she had mentioned wanting for months. "Wow, that's a beauty," she exclaimed, trying to push the frustration down and keep her tone light. "Looks like someone still has time for gifts." Mark's smile faltered. "It's just a gift from the company, a holiday bonus. I didn't even choose it." Yet the weight of his career seemed ever present in every moment they shared. Suddenly, she felt the urge to pull back, just when she desired closeness the most. The thought that nothing would truly ever change crept into her mind. As Christmas Eve approached, the excitement in the house melded with an underlying tension. Sara decided that they needed to create new traditions, but each suggestion met with Mark's polite indifference. There was an unvoiced question hanging between them. When would this facade of normalcy shatter? On Christmas morning, the kids burst into their room, their laughter echoing with the enthusiasm of the holiday. They rushed to the tree, eyes wide with excitement. As Mark settled into the morning, he seemed in his element, but Sara couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Suddenly, in the midst of laughter and gift unwrapping, the phone buzzed. Mark, unintentionally, picked it up. Sara caught a glimpse of the screen, and her heart dropped. A message from a colleague about a meeting scheduled for the 26th, a meeting that couldn't be missed. "Mark," she ventured, a knot forming in her stomach. He glanced at her, a storm of emotions swirling in his expression. "It's just a quick call. I'll be done in 5 minutes," he said, turning away, already consumed by the world he had tried to leave behind. Struggling to hold back tears, Sara took a deep breath. She had wanted today to be perfect, a day of reconnection, and yet it felt like another reminder of what had been lost. Would he ever truly choose this family over work? Would their plans for a new beginning be derailed before they even started? As she watched him walk away, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of a precipice. And that's when it hit her. Today, of all days, might not just be a day of celebration, but of reckoning. Would Mark finally see the truth? Would she? Sara steeled herself for what was coming, realizing that this Christmas could become a turning point one way or another. But were they ready for the truth, or would the revelation tear them apart? The warmth of the fire felt temporary, and she knew they were just moments away from a confrontation, one that could make or break them. The sounds of laughter filled the living room, but they felt hollow to Sara. She braced herself, watching Mark as he turned his back to her, focused on the phone, as if he were being pulled into quicksand. The Christmas tree lights twinkled brightly, but the glow seemed distant against the dark cloud hanging over her heart. "Mommy, look what I got!" one of the kids shouted, their voice bursting with joy. The little one held up a shiny red truck, eyes sparkling brighter than the ornaments on the tree. But instead of sharing in that joy, Sara felt an ache grow inside her, a longing for Mark to join them, to really be part of these beautiful moments. "That's awesome, sweetie," she called out, forcing a smile as she watched her child dazzle in their happiness. It was a bittersweet moment, the kind that twisted her heart. She glanced at Mark again, still absorbed in his conversation, and the knot in her stomach tightened. After what felt like an eternity, he finally hung up, turning with a sheepish look. "Sorry about that. Just some last-minute stuff, you know." The words stung. They felt like another reminder of the distance between them. At Christmas? The words slipped from her lips before she could stop them. His expression shifted, annoyance creeping in. "It's not my choice, Sara. I had plans to spend the day with you all." "Do you?" she asked, the desperation creeping into her voice. "Do you really want to be here, or are you just trying to win a battle you can't fight?" His brow furrowed, and for a moment they both stood there in a charged silence. The kids were oblivious, absorbed in their toys, but Sara felt the weight of the world pressing down on them. It was as if the walls of their home were closing in, leaving them trapped in a room of unspoken grievances. "I'm trying," Mark said at last, voice tight. "I'm trying to make things better for us." "Better how?" she challenged, frustration bubbling over. "By being physically here, or by buying more time from your job? Is that what you think we need?" The frustration broke free, filling the room with an intensity that surprised even her. The spark in Mark's eyes flickered, and she saw a flicker of vulnerability beneath his bravado. "Maybe I just thought you'd be proud of me," he murmured, looking down. "You think I wanted to miss out on today?" "Proud of what? You make more money than anyone could dream of, but at what cost? At the cost of this family?" Catching sight of the kids enjoying their gifts, Sara felt a surge of resolve. "Do you even see what you're missing? The laughter, the magic of this day?" Sara sighed deeply, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "I just want to provide." "Provide what?" Sara's heart ached for clarity. "What will our kids remember? The Christmases you weren't here for? The moments that will pass us by while you're busy chasing promotions and titles?" There was a long pause as they both stared at each other, the reality of their hearts laid bare. Mark's mask slipped, and she saw the worn man behind the facade. His struggle wasn't just to hold on to the job, but to grasp at the threads of their old life, the life when their love burned bright without the shadows of pressure and fear. "What if I told you felt lost too?" he finally admitted, his voice gentle, almost fragile, as if he feared breaking the moment. Her heart fluttered at the hint of vulnerability in his tone. "What do you mean?" Just as he opened his mouth to answer, the youngest child ran towards them, excitement in their eyes, as they clasped a glittering ornament, declaring, "Look what I made! It's for both of you!" Sara glanced at Mark, seeing a hesitant smile creeping onto his lips.
Here stood a chance, a flicker of hope shining through the tangled emotions. They could let today change everything, if they were honest. Would they rise to the occasion together, or would this holiday slip into another missed opportunity, overshadowed by what they had failed to acknowledge? In that moment, Sara felt both hope and fear intertwining like the tinsel on the tree. And as the laughter echoed around them, she recognized that the answers they needed were just a breath away. But would they gather the courage to ask the difficult questions and to confront what they had both been hiding? The ornament sparkled in the child's small hands, rays of colored light bouncing off its surface. Sara couldn't help but smile at the earnest look in her child's eyes. "It's beautiful. Thank you, sweetheart." The warmth of that moment rippled through her, but just as quickly, the tension with Mark loomed again like a storm cloud overhead. "Yeah, really nice," Mark added with forced enthusiasm, but Sara could see the flicker of distraction behind his eyes. The phone that had connected him so often to the outside world now seemed to be a tether holding him back, preventing him from truly connecting with them. "Can you hang that up on the tree?" she asked, hoping to redirect the energy in the room. The child scampered off, a burst of joy and lightness, but the atmosphere between Sara and Mark remained thick and heavy. "I never wanted all of this to come between us," Mark said, his voice quieter now that it was just the two of them. "You know that, right?" "This isn't just about wanting, Mark. It's about choices." Her own words surprised her, a surge of conviction rushing through. "Every day you choose work over us. She stopped, struggling to find the right words. It felt like they were standing on a tightrope, each word a potential misstep. "I just want you to choose us, choose me, because love should be what we prioritize, shouldn't it?" He shifted, rubbing the back of his neck, the movement a mix of frustration and inability to express himself. The demands at work, they're overwhelming. I thought if I could provide us a better life, you'd see how much I care. Provision isn't everything. Tension danced in her voice, but she kept it steady. You're here, yet you're not, and I don't want our kids to grow up resentful of the work you're missing out on. Mark's expression softened, yet still a shadow of a struggle lay there. What if I promised to change things? Do you think that can fix this? The question hung between them like a delicate thread. It's not just a promise about time, it's a promise about us, about being present, really present. The honesty in her eyes met the uncertainty in his. The children returned, giggling with delight as they tried to decorate the tree together, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away.
Mark forced a smile and joined in, helping to place the ornament on a sturdily limb. But Sara noticed the way his heart didn't seem to be in it. Walls still stood, invisible yet heavy. Fighting the urge to pull away into her thoughts, she stepped closer, reaching out. Can we, not just for today, but for our future, can we find a way to talk more openly about this? He looked at her, the mask lifting just a little more. What are you really asking for, Sara? The question felt pivotal, a key turning in a lock. She took a deep breath, the weight of honesty pressing on her chest. I'm asking you to be all in, not just physically here, but emotionally and mentally. I want to know you again, the man I fell in love with before the job took over. I want you to want that too. Mark's gaze fluttered momentarily, like he was wrestling with a part of himself he had buried deep. Behind his eyes, a storm battled against his desire to break free from what had come to define him. Maybe if I took a step back from the job, just long enough to see if it changes anything, we can explore who we are together. Sara's heart raced at his words. Really? You would consider that? Yeah, he said slowly, his voice more certain now. I need to know what it feels like to be here fully with you and the kids. It's important to me. Before she could respond, the oldest child erupted. Let's sing! It's Christmas! And with that, the room filled with joyful chaos of carols, laughter echoing through the home. For a moment, it seemed to drown out their worries, wrapping them in warmth. But beneath it all, Sara couldn't shake the question lingering in her mind. Was this a real change, or just a temporary promise? And as the melody swirled around them, Sara felt hope mixing with uncertainty, a fragile dance of emotions. Would they really take this chance together, or would the pressures of the outside world pull them apart once more? The melody hung in the air, wrapping them in a fragile bubble of warmth. Yet, as Sara watched Mark smile at their children, a nagging doubt settled deep within her. Would the music be enough to hold them together? As their child hit the high notes with exuberance, Sara found herself lost in thought, swept away by the uncertainty that loomed just beneath the surface. The caroling faded slowly, and Mark excused himself for a moment, disappearing into the kitchen. She could hear him rummaging through the cabinets, but the distance between them grew, thickening the unspoken tension in the room. Forcing a smile, she turned to the kids. What do you think we should do next? Any ideas? Their responses came tumbling out in giggles and half-formed sentences, the weight of the world falling away momentarily. I want to make cookies, the youngest chimed in, eyes bright with delight. Cookies it is. Let's make the best ones we can. She added some cheer to her voice and joined in their playful chatter, all the while keeping an ear tuned to the distant clinking of dishes. A flicker of happiness rumbled inside her, like the glow of freshly baked cookies tantalizing the senses. Mark returned, hands wiped clean on a kitchen towel. Did I hear cookies? He asked, a genuine smile breaking through. Sara felt her heart lift, but the question still lingered. Could one joyful evening change everything? As they gathered ingredients, Sara watched Mark carefully, hoping to catch a glimpse of the man he used to be. They worked side by side, laughter breaking like waves over the shoreline, rhythmically pulsing between them. Flour dusted their noses as they rolled out the dough, and for a flickering moment, it felt like they were starting anew,
like the grating tension might dissolve into something lighter. "Hey," she said softly, "remember that Christmas we made gingerbread houses and got flour everywhere?" He chuckled, shaking his head at the memory. "How could I forget? I think we had more dough on us than on the houses." Sara laughed, his voice warming her heart, but behind the laughter, uncertainty whispered. "I miss those moments, the silly ones." "Me too," he confessed, his voice more serious now. "I miss being less caught up in everything else." "Are you really ready to take a step back, Mark?" she asked, her heart pounding as she pushed against her fears. "I mean, is it just talk, or do you mean it?" His expression shifted, a thoughtful pause enveloping him. "I want to mean it, Sara." The reassurance felt both comforting and terrifying. "Piece by piece," he added quietly, "I'll find a way to get back to us." She studied him closely, unsure whether to take that as a promise or a polite pledge to soothe her worries, a temporary band-aid for deeper wounds. "And if work calls, what then?" Mark shrugged, visibly torn. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I promise I'm going to try. I don't want our life to be just one big work day." Hope stirred in Sara's unsteady heart. "Let's celebrate this moment then, one small step towards a better us." And just as they formed the last of the cookie shapes, laughter burst again, filling the air with sweetness. In the warm glow of the kitchen, they felt lighter, forgetting about the storm clouds outside for a little while longer. But what neither of them realized was the test of that promise was waiting just around the corner. As they baked, a text pinged on Mark's phone, drawing his attention once again into that world he so desperately wanted to escape. Sara saw his face change, the lightness fading as quickly as it had come. Would this moment of connection hold against the tide? As Mark stepped into the other room, distractions calling to him, Sara's heart sank. Could they really navigate this storm together, or would the past pull them back into its grip? Sara leaned against the kitchen counter, the smell of sugar and cinnamon filling the air, but her heart felt heavy. She heard the soft beep of Mark's phone from the next room, the faint sound of something urgent creeping back into their lives. An uncomfortable pit formed in her stomach as unease swirled around her like mist. The laughter of their children faded into the background, echoing hollowly. She wanted to join them, to lose herself in the warmth of that innocent joy, but dread held her back. Mark hadn't been gone long, yet it felt like years. Sara could picture him standing there, phone in hand, shoulders tense as reality slipped back in. "Mommy, are the cookies ready?" The youngest tugged at her apron, eyes wide and innocent. "Just about, sweetie." She forced a smile, feeling her heart ache for the happiness she tried to display. "Can we eat one now?" The pleading look on her child's face reminded her of the little celebrations they used to have before everything felt like a battleground. "Absolutely," she said, a little more enthusiastic this time, moving toward the oven as hope flickered anew. But as she pulled out the baking tray and their sweet creations emerged, golden brown and delicious, a shadow fell over her. Mark's voice slinked back into the room, low and urgent. "Sorry, kids, I need to make a quick call." There it was, that familiar ache inside her. She glanced at Mark, seeing him pull himself away from the moment, the joyous chaos of cookie-making, to slip back into the weighty role of provider. "What's so important that it can't wait?" she murmured, unable to keep the disappointment from her voice. He turned, caught in a moment of indecision, and she saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes, but also an invisible barrier she couldn't breach. "Just work stuff. It'll be quick," he said, glancing down at the screen again when it buzzed. "Right," she responded, trying to hide the hurt. The kids were oblivious, giggling, their excitement contagious, yet it made her heart ache more to see Mark pulled away from them. She prepped the cookies on plates, her movements mechanical. The warmth from the oven seeped into her, but coldness settled in her heart. As she handed out the still warm cookies to her children, she forced herself to engage, putting on a brave face. "Okay, who wants to help decorate them?" she announced, grinning widely at the kids, who bounced excitedly, sugar on their minds. While they enthusiastically grabbed sprinkles and frosting, a piece of her remained frozen, glancing back to where Mark was still absorbed by his phone. "Hey, Mark," she called, trying to bring him back. "Come and join us." He shifted his weight, but her hopeful tone couldn't bridge the chasm growing between them. Instead of coming to sit with them, he took a step further back, phone glued to his ear. And then it happened. The laughter died. The kids looked around, sensing the change in the air. Mark hung up, scrubbing a hand over his face like he was waking from a dream. "I'm sorry, Just what?" Sara replied, biting her lip to suppress the swell of emotion. It's a big project. I need to take care of it now." "So your work is more important than being here with us, right now?" She struggled to keep her voice steady. Mark sighed, frustration creeping into his features. "That's not fair, Sara." "Maybe not, but you promised." Her voice wavered, and she struggled to maintain her composure. "You promised you were going to try." The silence in the kitchen thickened, the children picking up on their tension but unable to understand it. Mark's phone buzzed again, and he glanced at it, the tension in his jaw tightening once more. Sara felt her heart break a little more at the sight. In that moment, she realized she was standing at a crossroads. If they couldn't address the distance that had grown, it wouldn't matter how many cookies they baked. "Mark," she said softly, fear coiling in her chest, "what if this is a cycle we can't break?" His expression shifted, surprise washing over him. "What do you mean?" "The work, the calls, everything. I can feel it pulling us apart, and I don't want that." He paused, uncertain. "I don't want it either, Sara." But before he could finish, the phone buzzed again, and Sara's heart plummeted. How many more times could they drift apart before it was too late? As Mark stepped outside to catch another call, the children's laughter echoed in the kitchen, but the sweetness felt like a distant memory. Sara turned to them, her resolve hardening. "Okay, who's ready to make a big mess?" They cheered, but inside her heart trembled with a new urgency. The pull between hope and reality had grown. In that moment of chaos and frosting, she realized they needed to confront the truth living in the darkness, or they might lose each other forever. And just as she stirred the vibrant frosting, a ping from Mark's phone vibrated across the counter. Another message, another reminder of the world he seemed to live in. Could she muster the courage to take a stand? The festive chaos blurred around her, leaving Sara fighting both for her family and for her own heart. The door closed behind Mark with a soft click, the sound echoing in the kitchen like a thunderclap. Sara's heart raced, trapped between the world of cookie sprinkles and the weight of unsaid words. The children's excitement buzzed, a bubble of laughter that floated, but Sara didn't feel it. Instead, sadness crept in, coiling around her like a heavy blanket. She stirred the frosting, its bright color on the white countertop a stark contrast to the gray fog sitting in her spirit. "Mommy, look at mine!" her oldest exclaimed, proudly presenting a lopsided cookie adorned with an avalanche of sprinkles. Sara managed a smile, hoping it looked real enough, but her heart sunk further with every bubbling chuckle from the kids. How could she celebrate when the very foundations of their happiness felt so fragile? With a sigh, she wiped her hands on her apron and joined the kids on the floor. They giggled, sticking fingers into frosting, oblivious to the weight of the moment. She dipped into that joy for a second, their carefree glee like a sip of fresh lemonade on a hot day. But then she caught sight of the kitchen door, waiting for Mark to return. Each ring of his phone outside felt louder than the last, each beep a reminder of the distance that grew with every passing minute. Did he care about them? The thought gnawed at her, and she banished it as the kids dove back into cookie decorating with wild abandon. "Let's put the cookies on the plate," she suggested, trying to reignite that magic, those sweet little moments that had once filled their home with laughter. The children chattered excitedly, comfortable in their world, while Sara's unease only deepened. "Mommy?"
her youngest piped up, eyes big and innocent. "Can you help me with my cookie?" Sara shook her head free from the worries, forcing herself to get lost in their giggles. "Of course, sweetie," she replied. But in the back of her mind, a storm brewed, full of questions that begged for answers. "Do you think Daddy will come back soon?" the oldest asked, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. The question hung in the air, a weighty thing that tugged at Sara's heart. Would Mark come back? More than physically, would he return emotionally? The kitchen felt too big, too quiet without him, and she could feel the disappointment washing over her like a sudden wave. "Let's just have fun decorating, okay?" she said, trying to diffuse the tension. With a shaky breath, she took a deep dive into the affair of sprinkles and frosting, trying to let the warmth of the moment settle in. Yet inside her, a battle raged on, an inner dialogue of pain and hope that she could not quiet. Finally, the door swung open, and Mark stepped in, rubbing his temples as if he was shaking off an entire world of pressure. His relieved smile faltered as he took in the chaos, frosting fingers, scattered sprinkles, and giggles mingling with the aroma of baked cookies. "Hey, looks like you guys are having a good time," he said, but there was a hollowness to his words that Sara couldn't ignore. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice perhaps sharper than I intended. The kids paused, their eyes bouncing between their parents, sensing the tension in the air again. "I had to take care of that thing from work," he replied. "Mark," I said slowly, feeling the heat of my heart racing in my chest, "this is what matters, this moment, not whatever business deal is waiting on your phone." He shifted his gaze, deep lines forming around his mouth. "I know, Sara, I get it, but you don't understand how important this is." The kids returned to their frosting with renewed energy, but Sara felt a crack forming.
The barrier between them was thickening, and for the first time she couldn't tell if it could ever be broken. What's the point if we lose each other in the process? Her voice wobbled, and this time the fear blazed through her. A realization hit. They were slipping. Mark stood silent, his eyes searching hers, but he didn't speak. Just as a flicker of hope appeared in her chest, the phone rang again. In that moment, the laughter faded behind her. What would it take to make him choose them? And as she stood there, hands trembling, the frosting jar precariously poised to tip, she knew they had to confront the truth before it all crumbled away. Sara's heart raced. What would happen if she pushed him to choose between work and family? Would he choose them? "Mark," she began, a surge of bravery rising inside her. But as she opened her mouth to speak, a new text pinged from his phone, illuminating the table like a warning sign. And as the kids inadvertently decorated a cookie with too much frosting, the question lingered. Would today be the day she found her voice? Would she fight for their happiness? Or would she let it slip through her fingers like breadcrumbs disappearing in the wind? Sara's breath caught in her throat as she stared at Mark, whose focus was suddenly absorbed by that glowing screen. The moment she had waited for, it was slipping away again. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach, a mix of dread and desperation. "Just a second," he mumbled, fingers flying over the phone as if it held all the solutions to their problems. It felt wrong, so wrong. The clatter of sprinkle containers and innocent giggles filled the space around him, and yet he seemed so far away. "Mark!" Her voice cut through the air, sharper now, refusing to break under the weight of uncertainty. "Don't you see what this is doing to us? To the kids?" He looked up, momentarily startled, his expression shifting from focus to shock. "I'm trying to provide for us, Sara. You know that." The tension hung heavy between them, like a thick cloud ready to burst. "But not like this." She stepped closer, craving the connection they once had, the affection that wrapped around them like a warm sweater on a cold day. The children sensed the rising storm. Their giggles dulled, and curiosity replaced it. They glanced between their parents, as if trying to piece together a puzzle their little hearts could barely understand. "Mommy, is everything okay?" her youngest asked. Frosting-coated fingers paused mid-air. Sara knelt, meeting his innocent gaze. "It's okay, sweetie. We're just having a grown-up talk." But was it really okay? Deep down, she felt the ground beneath her tremble, like the crack in an old vase threatening to splinter completely. "Just let me handle this, Sara," Sara said softly, but there was a barrier in his words, a wall she couldn't scale.
Sara felt the cracks deepen, realizing she had to push harder. What's the point of all this success if we're losing each other? Is your work more important than family? The question hung heavy in the air, and an uncomfortable silence enveloped them. Mark's eyes flickered with something she couldn't identify. Guilt? Anger? Or perhaps raw fear? "I'm doing this for us," he began, but the edge in his voice betrayed uncertainty. "For who, Mark?" The tears began to prickle at the corners of her eyes, and she blinked hard against them. "Because it feels like I'm losing you in the process, and it's breaking my heart." Just then, the doorbell rang, slicing through the tension like a knife. Every pair of eyes turned toward the door, the unexpected sound pulling them momentarily from their spiraling thoughts. "Who could that be?" Mark asked, shifting between the door and his family. It was a distraction, but perhaps one they both needed. "Maybe it's Grandma," the eldest piped up, excitement flooding her voice. With a glance back at Sara, Mark exhaled, the weight of what was unsaid still lingering. "I'll get it." He moved toward the entrance, but Sara felt the grip of worry. Would this be just another distraction, another thing pulling him away? As he opened the door, she could see a shadow standing there, but she couldn't make out who it was. A sense of foreboding settled in her stomach. Whatever this was, it could change everything. The kids bounced to their feet, smiling and chatting about colorful cookies, but Sara's heart continued racing. She glanced back at Mark, who held the door open wide, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock. What are you doing here?" he stammered. Sara felt her breath hitch. This didn't feel like a casual visitor. She could sense it. The air shifted, carrying an unspoken revelation that hovered just beyond the threshold. Her palms began to sweat, the weight of uncertainty building again. Were they finally going to confront this? Would the arrival of whoever stood at the door shake the foundations of their reality? As Sara took a step closer, dread curled her fingers. What could be hiding behind that door? The moment was electric. Sara could see Mark's body tense as the door creaked open wider. There stood a woman with a warm smile, yet familiarly unsettling presence. Her long brown hair cascaded in soft waves, and her eyes sparkled with something that made Sara's heart twist. It was the same look that had once drawn Mark to her. "Claire?" Mark's voice was barely a whisper, as if he couldn't quite believe his eyes. Sara's heart sank as that name echoed in the room, breaking through the tension like glass shattering. It felt as if the floor had dropped beneath her. Their past, once tucked away and neatly folded, had burst into the present like a firework, unpredictable and bright. "Surprise!" Claire chirped, stepping forward with a confidence that made Sara's skin crawl. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Mark's face was a mix of shock and something she couldn't understand, while Sara felt the blood drain from her face. The children were now silent, glancing uncertainly at every adult in the room, soaking up the shifting atmosphere with wide eyes. No, it's fine," Mark said quickly, his voice shaky. "We were just—" He trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't betray the chaos of their reality. Sara struggled to breathe, her heart racing. This was the last thing they needed. "Mark, we need to—" "Hey there," Claire said, cutting her off, kneeling to meet the kids. "What are you baking today? Cookies?" Her bright, cheerful demeanor felt like a stab. Sara's throat tightened. "Yeah, it's just—" Her voice faltered, lost in a swirl of emotions. No amount of frosting was going to sweeten this moment. "So, Mark, do you remember when we—" Claire started, her laughter ringing out as she reminisced. The words felt like knives digging deeper into Sara's wounds with every fond memory recited. Mark's expression hardened as he fought to regain control. "This isn't the time, Claire." "What? I'm just trying to be friendly," she replied, tilting her head in innocent confusion. In that moment, the invisible bond that had formed between Sara and Mark, the one they'd struggled to keep intact, felt thinned, stretching too taut. The spark of connection was being overshadowed by Claire's casual charm, and it ignited fire in Sara's chest. "Why now?" she found herself saying, her voice steady. "Why come back now?" Mark looked at Sara, desperation flickering in his gaze. He opened his mouth to speak, but hesitated, words tangled in his throat. Claire straightened up, undeterred. "I figured there might still be some old feelings left over, things that got lost in time, you know?" Sara could feel her heart thudding uncomfortably. "What does that mean?" "It means," Claire said with a smile, "that sometimes people just need reminding of what they once had." The children began to fidget, sensing the rising tension. Sara's thoughts raced. This was more than a surprise visit. It felt like an invasion. Every effort to rebuild their family, every sweet moment of laughter, at risk of being washed away in this unexpected tide. Mark remained silent, his features wavering as if caught in a storm of his own. Sara knew she needed to fight, for her family, for herself. "Claire, we're happy right now," Sara said, her voice stronger, filled with a conviction she didn't quite feel yet. "You need to leave." But just as that firm resolve began to take hold, she noticed the glint in Claire's eyes, a challenge, a hint that more was at stake than just nostalgia. "Really, Sara," replied Claire smoothly, her tone sharp, "are you sure you want to do this? Because—" It was then that Mark stepped forward, finally finding his voice.
"I don't know what you want, Claire, but we're done with the past." The air went still. Every breath was a balance between hope and dread. A simple conversation was about to unravel deeper truths. But the moment of truth wasn't over yet. What else would Claire reveal? What lay hidden beneath the surface? Would Mark stand solidly by Sara, or would he drift back into a past he thought he had left behind? The answers lay tangled in uncertainty, and Sara's heart raced as she braced herself for whatever would come next. As the words hung in the air, the tension around them charged like a live wire. Sara's heart raced as she searched Mark's eyes for reassurance. Would he choose their family, or let sentimental memories cloud his judgment? "Mark," Sara said, her tone chillingly sweet, "you can't just erase our history. It matters." She stepped closer, her smile radiating confidence, as if she was the one in control. "No one is erasing anything," Mark replied, firmly, yet his voice wavered just slightly. "I made a choice. I'm choosing my family." Sara breathed a sigh of relief, yet the unease still twisted in her gut. Claire flicked her hair back and laughed lightly, but it didn't mask the discomfort growing in the room. "Are you sure that's what you really want?" Claire challenged, arching an eyebrow. "You're still weighing your options, aren't you? After all, those memories we shared were just so special." The children stood still, haunted by the surge of emotions swirling in the living room. It became a battleground of past and present, love and longing. "Enough!" Sara's voice commanded attention, cutting through the festering awkwardness. "You need to leave now, Claire. You may think you have a claim on the past, but it's not your place anymore." Claire's facade cracked. "I'm not trying to take him from you, Sara. I just wanted to remind him of what we had." Mark turned to Claire, a frown etched on his brow. "I have a family now, Claire. You coming back into our lives only complicates things. I won't let you do that." The tension deflated slightly, and now it felt like a fragile thread dangled between them all, a precarious balance of emotions, memories, and responsibilities. Claire's smile faltered, revealing a hint of vulnerability. "I didn't mean to disturb your happiness," she said softly, but her eyes belied her words. "Sometimes I think about what could have been." "Could have been?" Mark repeated, taking a step forward as if pushed by invisible forces. We've built a life here with kids who need us. We're surrounded by love, and it matters. Don't you dare imply otherwise." Sara leaned into Mark's strength. "You chose this life, and you need to keep choosing it. This facade of nostalgia doesn't serve us or our children." "Fine," Claire huffed, the blush of frustration flooding her cheeks. "Just remember that love isn't just about the present. It's the past, too. You can't erase what we were."
Mark shook his head, retrieving his strength. "No, but I can choose to cherish my family. I will not allow the past to undermine everything I value." Claire opened her mouth, about to retort, when she caught the intensity of Sara's gaze. It was fierce, a protective fire that wouldn't be extinguished easily. "It's like Sara said," Mark said, locking eyes with Sara. "What we build now is what matters most. The future we create with our kids is everything." All of a sudden, Claire's posture faltered. The mask of confidence slipped away and sadness tinged her features. "I didn't come here to make trouble," she sought to explain, but the mask of her intent remained unclear. "Maybe it's best you leave," Mark told her gently, almost pitying, "for all of us." With a heavy silence hanging in the air, Claire hesitated, her expression flickering with regret. "I just thought you'd remember." "But we don't need that," Sara interrupted, her heart pounding. "We have our own memories worth fighting for. We deserve to explore them fully." Claire let out a breath, eyes wistfully drifting as if caught between a world that no longer belonged to her and a bittersweet nostalgia that weighed her down. "I wish you both well, truly," she murmured, but there was an edge of uncertainty in her voice as she stepped backward. As she turned to leave, Sara's heart beat heavily in her chest. Had they just weathered a storm? Claire's presence had threatened to unravel what they had begun to rebuild, but the love flowing between Sara and Mark held firm. The moment she stepped out of the door, Sara let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Mark turned back to her, relief washing over his features, but there was an undercurrent of guilt. "I'm sorry you had to endure that," he said, stepping toward her. "No, you don't need to apologize. You stood up for us." The children, sensing the shift, began to giggle again, splashes of joy puncturing the awkward silence. There was healing in that laughter, a reminder that they were whole together. "Hey," the youngest shouted, breaking the tension. "Can we taste cookies now?" Sara smiled, the warmth flooding back in. "Absolutely. Let's celebrate our family, right here and right now, together." Mark stepped forward, their eyes meeting in a vibrant connection. Together. They began to gather the children, laughter bubbling up once again as Sara handed out the first warm cookie. As Mark joined in, helping to decorate, she could feel the darkness lifting. The air crackled with hope. They had faced a challenging moment but emerged stronger together, reclaiming the joy in their home even amid uncertainty. All of it felt like a new beginning. Mark had chosen them, and Sara realized that love had a way of guiding you back to where you truly belong. United in that kitchen filled with the sweet aroma of cookies, they began to build their future, piece by piece. And as the bite of cookies mingled with their laughter, a renewed sense of hope settled in their hearts. They weren't looking back anymore. They were looking forward as a family, together. If this moment of clarity could ignite a fire, what would the future hold? If you resonated with their journey, now is your chance to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really matters. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Let your voice shine. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our journey through these actions.